What's going on? Bardown Beauties back for episode 4. Nope. Okay. See, this is what happens when you get in my head,
What you
Fred.
did, Fred.
God. What's going on? We're back for episode 4 of Bardown Beauties, presented by SodaStick.com. I'm Jessi Pierce, alongside Alexis Pearson and Fred Vinevert. How is everybody doing today, Alexis? What's going on?
I'm good. I got my coffee and my water. I'm staying hydrated today.
You know, we've talked about the roaming studio. Today we're actually doing it remotely via Google Hangouts. It's a pretty sweet setup, guys. I'm in Florida. I'm sorry for all you Minnesotans getting hammered with some snow and cold, but I'm also not that sorry.
And I am in my basement, not as cool as Florida, and one of the people getting hammered with snow and cold today.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about on today's episode, including a special guest, Carly Zucker, who will tell us a lot of great stories about, she's married to a hockey player, if you guys didn't know, this guy named Jason. So that should be a lot of fun, and she'll be joining us a little bit later on. But to kick things off, let's talk about the All-Star break. That starts this weekend.
Yeah, this is a interesting time of year because people are either like uber stressed out about where their team is in the standings, or the teams that are doing well, everyone can take a breather and be like, "Whew, no one's chasing us for 3, 4 days. Everyone can relax, people can have fun." But it kind of depends on where your team is in the standings. That completely bases how you feel about the All-Star break. But it's a fun weekend too to see some really good talent on display. If you want to stop thinking about the standings for a minute and just watch some really good hockey players do some exciting things.
It's definitely a fun weekend. Not so fun. We can't overlook the most recent news, too, of Gerard Gallant, who was let go from not only Vegas last week, but also as the Pacific Division coach. He was replaced by Rick Tocchet of Arizona. So not the best week for Mr. Gallant.
Jesse, I don't know how you felt about this news. I think most people were kind of on the same page about this, but I literally choked when I saw the headline that he was fired. I was in the car with my dad, and my dad was driving. I was in the passenger seat, and I look at my phone really quick, and I did a double take. So I get the NHL Twitter notifications to my phone.
Yeah.
So I just looked at my phone. I saw the notification, and I just saw news and all bold letters, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And I keep reading, and I'm like, wait a second, did I just read that right? And I started yelling. I was like, what is happening? Gallant just got fired.
Insanity.
Yeah. And my dad is like, what? And I was like, I don't know either. All I know is he was fired. And then I was kind of upset because I tweeted about this, but I wanted the drama of him to coach the Pacific Division after he got
Yes.
fired. So then he gets taken out of that. And I'm like, okay, come on, at least give us that. That would have made things really exciting. But yeah, I don't know. I am, of all the firings that have happened this year, which has been a lot so far, and we're only in January. That was the one I was probably most confused by.
It was shocking. I mean, no one's safe. They're 3 points out of a first, and he's still let go. I mean, I guess to standards, they might be considered underperforming, but I'd take that Vegas squad any
Yeah.
day to watch. So it's definitely shocking. Obviously, we covered the firings a lot in episode 3, but had to note that, and it ties into our All-Star conversation today too.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too is it's not even just this year. Look at what he did with the team since he's been with the team. What is there there
Right.
that you're mad about that he didn't if the Wild would have made the Stanley Cup Finals in the first season, everyone would have been crying tears of happiness. And then you just fire him 2.5 seasons in. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I saw a tweet too because my dad and I were chatting about this. He's like, "There's got to be something behind the scenes that happened, right?
Sure.
It doesn't make any sense why he would be fired." And so then I was kind of following along on Twitter, and everybody was talking about it the day that it happened, which why wouldn't they? And I saw a tweet from, I think it was a reporter for Vegas. I'm not 100% sure. But it was somebody who said something like, I hate that I even have to address this, but his firing was completely performance based. So implying the fact that there was nothing behind the scenes that happened. They literally just were not happy with the way that he was coaching. And that was
Sure.
even more confusing. I'm like, if you would have come out and said something crazy happened behind the scenes, I'd have been like, okay, well, it makes sense why he was fired. You're just fired him because you're mad that you're 3 points out of first place. I don't understand.
Get some real problems, Vegas. Come on
Yeah,
now.
seriously. My goodness.
It's crazy. It's definitely, I mean, and like you said, it's only January. So
Yeah.
plenty can still happen between now and
I'm
the end.
scared, and I'm not even a coach. I feel like someone's gonna fire me.
I think there's always been that saying that you're hired to get fired if you're a coach. So that's
That's
kind
true.
of how that works. But
Yeah.
Circling back on the All-Star, Eric Stahl representing. He's very familiar with the All-Star game 6 times. Second time under the Wild logo was the MVP back in 2008. Kind of an old hat for Mr. Stahl. What do you think about him going, Alexis?
I think it's a great pick. Stahl is one of those guys where if you just take points aside, which I think right now he's got like 33 points on the season, something like that,
Mhm.
16 goals, 15 assists. So he's doing his due diligence when it comes to scoring and putting points up on the board. But when you look at just the way he plays the game too, I mean, the guy loves playing. He's so excited every time he scores, and it's like an extra level of excitement you don't see. And I
My
think it's
favorite goal celebration,
oh
hands down from the
he
Wild.
it
And his
doesn't matter.
brothers all do it too.
Yes.
Like, they all have the same, like, "Oh my gosh, we scored." Like, it's a Stahl trait. I love it.
And I don't know if it's because he's older now and he realizes that maybe his years in the NHL are gonna be coming to a close soon, so that excitement is exemplified just because, he realizes that this isn't gonna last forever, or maybe he's just someone who is just extremely fired up every time he puts the puck in the back of the net, but either way, he definitely deserves it, and, it's gonna be fun to see him, at the All-Star break.
And I know he's mentioned that bringing his family and his kids, it's a big
Yeah.
part. They get super excited. That's obviously a huge thing that the NHL is trying to do, make it more family friendly. We actually caught up with Eric on just that and on being named an All Star. So let's hear from him.
I was excited. I mean, it's anytime you can get named alongside a lot of these guys in this league, it's a special experience. I've been fortunate to go a few times, and now having 3 young boys that are into hockey and enjoy playing themselves, to be able to share those moments with them and my family is pretty cool. And I'm excited to represent Minnesota, our team, and just have some fun, enjoy the weekend.
And again, that was Eric Stahl talking about being named an All Star, which starts this weekend. The NHL announcing a 3-on-3 elite game for the women this year, an American team and a Canadian team. Alexis, what are your thoughts there?
I think that's gonna be super, super cool. I know last year when, there was women players involved in the All-Star game, people were fired up about that, and they performed just as good as the guys, which was the most exciting part because we know they're capable of that, and
Mhm.
it was awesome to see them get on that stage and have majority of just NHL fans see what women in the women's leagues, whether that be playing internationally, NWHL, whatever it may be, perform because it's so cool seeing them get on that stage. And now the women have their own all-star game, which I'll be going to for the NWHL. But obviously, it's the fact of the stage they get to perform on in the NHL All-Star game, which is
Mhm.
big because it's just they get to perform in front of people who maybe a lot of those people doubted that they were good enough to be on that kind of stage. So to prove people wrong, just to show a different level and a different style to hockey is exciting, and they deserve it. So why not throw them in there? And it's cool to mix things up in the All Star game too. You don't want to see the same stuff every year, the
No.
same routine, the same players. You want to see new things, exciting things, new players. So I think it's great. I think people are going to love it. I've seen good comments about it already. People on social media saying they're excited about it, which I don't know why they wouldn't be. So it's going to be really fun. I'm excited.
And Alexis and I will dive into plenty of women's hockey conversation. We're both kind of on different ends of the
Yeah.
women's game and the spectrum. I work with USA Hockey and kind of the group of females that do international stuff, while Alexis is on the NWHL side, which right now there might be a small gap that needs to get bridged, but plenty of that conversation to come up. One more thing to touch on that, though, Kendall Coyne stealing the show last year. So I'm so excited to
Yeah.
see how this game turns out. I mean, you do have the best of the best female hockey players in the Canadians and the Americans there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I think exactly like you said, Alexis, to showcase their talent for a lot of folks that might not get out to see a women's game, whether they just didn't think they had an interest or they didn't,
Mhm.
have the opportunity because, you don't get to see these elite female athletes like that everywhere. I mean, we're very lucky here in Minnesota to see that talent on display constantly with the
Mhm.
Whitecaps and even beginning at the high school level since a lot
Yes.
of those females are Minnesotans. So I think it'll be a great thing. I'm excited to see what it transpires into, and I would love to see what some of these gals really outshow the
Oh
men too.
yeah.
That's always
Yeah.
my favorite part, right?
Yeah, I think the other cool thing too, which, people might not have noticed if they noticed this if they didn't actually watch, the All-Star festivities last year, but I think the excitement and, the involvement of the guys while the women were performing in the All-Star game was so cool to watch. I mean, it's so cool because these are the best athletes in this sport, in the world, and to see them mingle regardless of gender, regardless of what league they're in, that was so cool to see because they were so supportive of each other. They were so excited for each other. And I think that was, for me, one of the coolest parts outside of the fact that these women were getting to perform on such a big stage. Just the support they were getting from, the guys in the NHL and stuff like that, from the announcers, from, the fans who were there. All of that stuff was so cool. And I hope that they continue to do this stuff in years to come. And I'm really excited to see the stuff that they have going on this year.
Are you more of, like, into the skills aspect of the All-Star, or do you like the actual game itself?
I think I like the skills stuff because of the skills, because some of the, I mean, you see it in the games, but you don't really think about it sometimes until you see them, like
Like
hit.
Connor McDavid, we know he's
Yeah,
fast, but we had
right.
he's that fast.
Or when you got guys taking down, 5 bullseyes in 5 shots. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, they can shoot. Like, you think about it, but you don't really think about it till you see it in a setting like that. But I love the kind of like the relaxed kind of like looseness of the All-Star actual games, because the guys are having fun. They're teasing each other. The goalies are doing crazy moves, they're kind of making fun of each other. So I like that aspect of that. But I think the skills competition is probably my favorite part, just because, man, some of those players are incredibly talented, and to see it broken down by individual skill is really exciting to watch.
100% agree. I think I'm all in it for the skills. It's so
Yeah,
much fun to watch and see that talent fully on display. I mean, it's hard for them to showcase that when they're in the game. I mean, you're
right.
against other top talent too, so it's so much fun to watch in that aspect. Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals opting out once again as he starts to age. Um, you know, I get it. I think, especially as he's always mentioned, his end game is to win the Stanley Cup, and he doesn't want to have anything get in the way with that. Do you think that leads to further conversation, Alexis, about the time of year that they maybe have it? I mean, I think there's two sides to it. It's a great break for all players. I'm sure many Wild players are looking forward to
Yeah.
finishing out these next couple games here and then getting maybe a nice welcome break from hockey. But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I I don't have any problem with Ovechkin sitting out. I think at the end of the day, like you said about his comment, they're in the league to win the Stanley Cup. As fun as the All-Star game is, and the festivities and being around the fans and all of the excitement of it, that's all great. But what they're going to remember in their careers if they won a Stanley Cup or not. They're not going to
Mhm.
think about how many All-Star appearances they had. Sure, it might be something exciting to talk about. You'll make some good memories, but the Stanley Cup is what they're there for. So I don't have a problem with him sitting out. It's kind of sad in the sense that, as a fan of hockey, it's like, oh, I want to see the best talent, and Ovechkin is one of the best. So it
Yeah.
would be fun to see him, which we have seen him before, and I would love to continue to see him. But I understand why he doesn't want to. I I don't have a problem with where the All-Star game is. We talk in like football, you got the Pro Bowl, which is,
Mhm.
a different time of year and all that stuff. But I think that it's good to have it in the middle of the season, because when you think about it, for a couple things. A, the guys who are injured, it gives them time to rest. And if a guy is chosen to be in the All-Star game and he wants to sit out because he's injured, that's his discretion, right? He can do that.
Mhm.
The other thing is it gives players a little bit of a breather. At this point in the season, they're getting worn down. I mean, it's that time of year where you're starting to feel everything a little bit more. It hurts a little bit more, emotionally and physically, if you're not feeling good. So I don't have a problem with it in that aspect. And the last thing is, it's kind of in a way a stress reliever, because at this point in the season, as a fan, I'm feeling stressed. I'm thinking, oh God, where is it going? Where's the season going? It gives you
Yeah.
a chance to just kind of forget about that and remember why we all love the sport of hockey to begin with, to see the best talent, see the guys having fun, and the girls, now that the women are involved as well. And to me, that's really exciting to watch. And I can kind of forget about, where is my team in the standings? Where is my
Mhm.
favorite player going to get traded or not? Is my coach on the chopping block? Like, it gives you a chance to just forget about that for a few days and just enjoy some really talented hockey players do what they do best. So, um, if they did move it at some point, I wouldn't necessarily be mad or like not understand why they did it, but I have no problem where it's at in the season right now.
I don't either. And you had mentioned the Pro Bowl, and I don't know that fans are necessarily excited about having that postseason either. And
Yeah.
same with the players. So, I don't know that that would necessarily be the solution. to get people excited. I think people do get excited. And I think you're right. It's a welcome break from everybody involved in the game. I think it gets to be a grind. And I mean, we're
Yeah.
past the halfway point and now it's starting to get really do or die time. And I think it's a good mental break, a good physical break. People can heal up and come back for this kind of second half with some vengeance and start making their push for the cup at the end here. What do
Yeah.
you guys think? We'd love to hear from you. As always, this will be our question of the week. Do you like the All-Star game? Do you like the format that it's at? Would you like to see it moved? What would you like to see changed about it? At us on Twitter, on any of our social media channels, and we'd love to hear from you. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Carly Zucker joins us on Bardown Beauties. Can't wait to chat with her. Before we do get into that break, however, we have to give a nice shout out to sodastick.com, our presenting sponsor. Even more exciting, they are now partnering with us to bring you a very special edition, limited version of Bardown Beauties merchandise and apparel. Be sure to check out check out the Bardown Beauties sweatshirts and t-shirts now available at sodastick.com. You have until Friday at midnight to make your purchase for this first ever print run. Very, very excited. And don't forget to toss down that Bardown Beauties code to enjoy free shipping on all purchases from SodaStick. Plenty to choose from. You're a beauty either way. We love it. And SodaSticks, thanks so much. We're excited to get this gear out to you guys.
Yeah, that was so exciting to see when they sent us kind of the drafts of what everything was going to look like. I was like, holy cow, like people are going to be wearing stuff with our logo on it. That's so cool. And I've had so many people kind of reach out like, how much is it going to cost? When can I get it? I'm like, don't worry, we'll put all the info out there. So yeah, big thank you to SodaStick for kind of making our merchandise dreams come true. And it'll be really cool to see people start wearing our logo and what we put so much work into. So
Exactly. Rep the pod, support the
Yes.
Buttes, support SodaStick. It'd be great. So we'll be right back. Now joining us, the ever-talented, ever-lovely Carly Zucker, co-founder of Give 16, heard very regularly on KFAN. And I think you have a husband that he does something,
He does
right?
something. I mean, he basically is just my anchor, just my ball and chain.
That
No.
makes total sense.
Yeah, Jason Zucker, you guys know him.
Oh, plays for the
Rings a
Wild.
Plays
bell a
hockey.
little bit.
Yes, plays
Yes.
hockey. Yes, absolutely. But we're here to talk about you. We get
Oh,
to
geez.
give you
I
the
love it because
spotlight.
Jason's in the other room. And you have to
we
forgive
have
me.
the
I have
door
this
closed and
awful
everything.
cold, so I sound really funny. But yeah, Jason is in the other room, and I like that I was asked to do this and not him. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I mean, it
very
was nice
sweet.
of him to be here, I
Right.
guess.
Well, to
I
watch
think.
the kids, obviously.
Someone's
That's his
gotta do
job.
it,
Someone's
yeah.
got to watch the kids while I work. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you mentioned the kids. You got a lot going on, Carly. How do you juggle it all with everything, especially when Jason's on the road and kind of that dynamic that you guys have going on?
Yeah, it's a day by day thing. It's one day at a time. I mean, you do it too. I mean, you have
Sure.
two kids, you
Right.
work full time. It's busy, but everybody's busy in their own way. But if you have no kids or you have 6 kids, I mean, we're all just busy. Everybody's busy nowadays. So it's really just how you manage it. And I've learned that we just have to plan ahead. I was never a planner. I really just let things
Not
happen.
even a little bit?
No, I was never a planner. So I really let things happen. Now with the kids, though, I find myself, I have to plan, a week ahead, a couple
Right.
weeks ahead. Like, do I have childcare? Do we have, transportation to all the activities? If Jason's gone, especially, that's the big thing. So, yeah it's hard.
And you talked about kind of how busy you are, which obviously this kind of lifestyle is crazy. And 3 kids, 3 young kids too. Not,
Yeah.
you don't have 15, 16, 17-year-olds. You've got little ones running around. And you do so much of your own stuff that you pride yourself in. And we touched on it before we started recording, but talk about the transition of taking Jason's last name, because you had established yourself in your career with your last name, and then you get married. And was it something you thought about for a while, or did you think about it before you even met him or got married that you would do it at some point, or how did that kind of work for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So when I was younger, like probably your age, when I was like much younger, I remember always saying, even when I was growing up, I was never going to have kids. I didn't care if I got married. If I got married, I wasn't going to take his last name. I was very, very independent. And then everything changed. And truly, I don't know, there was really never a question about, he wouldn't have cared if I did or did not. He's so supportive of me and what I want to do. But it was something I wanted to do, was take his last name. And I couldn't really tell you why. Like, there wasn't a specific reason for it, other than now I can use it in the hockey world.
Right.
Yeah, like an interview. Like, hey, totally know you from the hockey world.
That's
Yeah.
correct, right.
So I'll definitely use his last name. But otherwise, I mean, I don't know if there was a real like moment where I said I'm ready to do that. And it was the same thing with the kids, like totally different story, totally different podcast. But Sophia wasn't planned. So for me, I had Sophia, and that was like, okay, now I want 10 kids. Like it wasn't something, I don't know if I ever wouldn't have had that happen if I would have had kids. So for me, that just kind of worked out in the greatest way.
Right. When you and Jason met, did you talk to him at all about the dreams and the aspirations that you had, as far as like, here's where I want my career to go? Was that something that you guys immediately discussed, knowing that his career could take him anywhere as well?
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that he loved about me, is that, I mean, when he met me, he knew what he was getting into. I've always been the same person.
Sure.
People always are asking me about Twitter and like, does he care? Is he mad? He knows who he married. I mean, it's worse for him off of Twitter.
I was going to say,
yeah,
we
have that dynamic at home. So, I mean, when we first met, he knew that I had Sophia. He knew that I had full-time jobs. I was traveling a ton for work at the time for CBS Sports Network, and doing trackside reporting for snowcross. And I was traveling with Monster Energy and doing all of these things. And he was extremely supportive of it. And I was also very stubborn and set in my ways at the time. And I thought, and that was kind of the joy of meeting him when I was older, is that I already knew what I wanted. And I had really established myself. And Sophia and I had a good thing going. And my job was going in the right direction for me at the time. And I'd gotten a job with the Timberwolves. And so for me, he was entering my world too. I wasn't just entering his world. And I think that can happen a lot of times in any profession. It doesn't have to be pro sports, that you kind of enter someone else's world and you have to adjust to them. And I'm not saying that we do during season, we definitely prioritize a lot of Jason's stuff. We just have to.
Right.
He can't say, well, I'll leave practice early to pick up the kids. Whereas most of the time I can schedule my things around that.
Allow that
No, they frown upon that. So there's things he can't adjust. So I mean, we work in each other's worlds, and he's really good about it. The mornings I have to get up early, and if he's home and I have to go to radio, he gets up and he helps out. And there's no arguments about that. There's no, him and hawing about it. He's happy to do it. So really, he entered my world as much as I entered his.
Right.
So was there ever a moment when you have two parents who are both successful in their careers, and was there a lot of time that allows luxury?
You met my parents. I was like,
no,
cool,
you and Jason.
I was like, I didn't know you knew my parents.
She really did her research.
Yeah, I was like, wow, deep dive.
Yeah, Wikipedia.
Got it. Yeah.
So a lot of times that allows one of the parents the luxury of maybe, stopping their career, being a stay-at-home parent, or pulling back on that career. Was there ever a moment in time where you were like, because you mentioned you were like, you didn't want kids, you didn't want a family, or you didn't really think about it too much.
All I wanted was job.
Right.
Yeah, all I thought about was job.
Once you met Jason and realized you could have that luxury if you wanted to, did it ever cross your mind that, hey, you know what, maybe I don't want to do this anymore, I just want to be a mom, I want to stay at home? Was that something you ever thought about?
No.
Because that's something I think about all the time.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, I love to work.
Right.
I love to work. And it doesn't have to necessarily be like radio, or it doesn't have to be TV. When we started Give 16, for me, that became a job in its own right. And so I really found opportunities to work in different areas. And for me, I'm not bringing home bank for what we do. We live off of Jason's career, which is really important for us, again, to prioritize that. But what I do is no less important. And so I guess I never wanted to not just stay home. It's incredibly, I mean, because part of the time I do. I'm really lucky that I can do both. And I guess that's the one thing I would say, is that I have the best of both worlds. Whereas a lot of days I am just home with the kids. A lot of, evenings I work if I'm hosting events or I'm doing other things. And so sometimes I'm gone in the evenings. My job is just all over the place. And I've always really liked that. I'm not a 9-to-5 person. That's just not my personality. Neither is Jason. And so I've always lived that way. And I think that for me, I really love being home with the kids, but I needed more than that for myself. And so I get the best of both worlds, which I really like.
Oh, absolutely. I'm totally the same way. Actually,
Yeah.
I love my kiddos, love being home with them. Mama needs her work time.
It's the hardest job it's truly the hardest job in the world to stay home. I mean, any parent who has been home for any period of time, it's truly the hardest. It's constant from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, you're busy doing something. It's not just the luxury of sitting around all day.
No.
Yeah, my mom's a stay-at-home mom, and she has been since I was born. I'm 24, so the older I get, the harder I realize what that job is. I always thought, like, cool, she doesn't do anything. That's awesome. Like, she just gets to be at home, doesn't have to go to work, and
Gets to watch TV all day.
Now I'm 24. I'm like, okay, that's one of the hardest jobs you could probably have.
For sure.
Yeah.
And they make it look easy. I would say my mom made it look so easy. She had 3 kids, and she just, every activity we got to on time, I mean, school, everything. My dad was very busy with his job, so she was predominantly the parent that took it on. And she made it look so easy, and I'm like, God, I make it look so difficult to my kids. Like,
Does your mom ever judge you for that? Sometimes my mom will be like, Jessica, it's not that difficult. I'm like, excuse me.
No, my mom's like a saint, and she treats me way better than I deserve. And she never has, but I definitely know it. Like, I'm like, oh God, my kids are gonna grow up and be like, my mom stayed home and she was just scared all the time. She was stressed.
She's crying in the corner once in a while.
Yeah, she
I'm
just
not
like
sure.
cries in her closet. It's really sad.
Oh, I love it. You know, speaking of your career still, you've covered the gamut. You did TV, you're doing radio. Do you have a favorite, or do you really just love it all and kind of being that personality that you can be?
I know what I didn't like. When I started in the job, I was doing general news, and I hated that. I hated it. First of all, I was too young to be responsible for what I was reporting on.
Sure.
I mean, I was 21 years old, interning and being on the air. And granted, it was a very small station, but I was delivering people news that I knew nothing about.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was doing them a disservice. It was doing me a disservice. I would go cover things that I didn't want to. And I always felt that people's worst days were sometimes the best news days. And I hated that. Not that we enjoyed covering those things, but it made for a busy day. And some people are really good at that and thrive in those situations. And I've met I'm friends with a lot of those people in the news industry that do it really, really well. And thankfully for them, because it needs to happen, but it was never my gig. So I knew quickly that I didn't want to do news. I ended up doing it for maybe 3 years and then moved to California. I went back to school at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, literally just to live in California. I didn't care what I did. So I was like, oh yeah, Mom, Dad, I'm going back to school, California. It's going to be great. And they're like, what? You have like, what are you doing? And then ended up falling back into TV, and one thing led to another. And, snowcross was never on my radar covering that. I mean, I grew up in Minnesota, so sometimes I would go to the races that were here and close to St. Cloud, but it was definitely not on my radar of something I wanted to cover. And it was my favorite job ever of all time. I mean, doing live coverage trackside when they'd throw to you, I thought it was the coolest thing. And I learned so much doing it. And I just think for me, that was the biggest challenge I ever had as a job. And it was also my favorite thing to date. And I love radio. Radio, I think, is just having conversations is the greatest thing in the world. Right. It's hard to do news where you're just fitting things into like a couple questions or, a 2-minute segment. That's hard for me. But just sitting and having a conversation is way more fun.
And talk about the Timberwolves too. I mean, what was that experience?
That was great. I mean, that was a few years with TEN, so Timberwolves Entertainment Network. That was really fun. Again, I mean, basketball is not exactly my strong suit, so I was brought in to do more fun segments for them, and I enjoyed it, and everybody was great. And again, like a great learning opportunity and just something really great to do in the Twin Cities. But I never saw myself doing it long term. I was never like, okay, I know I want to be with the Timberwolves and continue to do this. So, yeah.
Makes sense.
So along with being on TV, a big part of that, or being, in media in any way, shape, or form, is social media and trolls.
Are you familiar?
Oh,
yeah.
You've heard of that, right?
Yes.
And a lot of people don't realize how hard it can be to balance that, because it is, as much as we love to say we don't think about it and we can blow it off and whatever, there is things that sometimes will get to you, or you try to figure out the best way to handle it, which you always seem to handle it so well. Is that something that you kind of trained yourself to do, or is that just your personality and it truly just is easy for you to kind of make fun of things and blow it off like that?
A little bit of both. I've always been a person that is kind of self-deprecating or can laugh at myself, doesn't take life too seriously. And so that's a little bit of my personality. And so I don't I care truly about like what my family thinks of me. And if my mom called me and she's like, your voice is so annoying, like that would hurt my feelings.
Mom, sorry, I'll fix it.
Right. But I try not to take what people are saying on the internet too personally. However, I remember when I met Jason, it was a totally different level of attention, because I was not really on anybody's radar. I did some TV stuff, but I was really just like a blip and nobody really cared. When I was with Jason, all of a sudden people came out of the woodwork and were commenting on like whether he should be with me and that I had a daughter, you know, like all these things where I was like, wow, like I can't believe you care about that, or that like that kind of hurts. And I remember at our engagement party, we posted very few pictures of us before then. And at our engagement party, I posted a picture of us and like, I thought I looked great. Like I was banging at that party. And I posted that picture and somebody commented with like no followers and like 18 zeros.
And an egg is there.
Totally. They commented like, oh, I didn't know you were pregnant. You know, you look so like big, whatever. Yeah. Congratulations. And I was like, what? And I remember crying and just being like, Jason, I was like, I look so pretty. And he's like, you can't worry about that stuff because it's going to happen.
Right.
And since then, I mean, things like that have happened a bajillion times. But I remember like the first few times it happens, it really sucks because you're like, really? Like, and Jason's always like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, I feel like those are the people that do. Like,
Jason's
they don't
like, you're so
back.
pretty. Like, I don't care about you. I care about him right here, right?
Yeah.
Is there ever, do you feel, I know we had even talked about this, you know, sometimes when there's so much criticism surrounding maybe Jason, for instance, and I find you get defensive of him, obviously. I mean, is there a line or is there
really?
something?
I feel like I'm the biggest critic.
I mean, sometimes, right? But there are certain situations, you do both. You go to battle with
and
both.
people in sports are ruthless too, in general. Like they're just it's intense.
You know, how do you manage that, or how do you kind of figure out, okay, I'm going to stay out of this battle and not say anything, or I'm going to jump in and defend my man?
At the end of the day, like, of course, I'm his biggest supporter. You know, we are as a family, and I try to stay out. I mean, I think I stay out of 90% of it, because if somebody's commenting on a bad game he had, cool, like he's gonna have more of them. It's not that big of a deal. Or if he, you know, defensively wasn't playing the way they want him to, or he hasn't scored in 3 games and they're mad about it, like it's fine. The one time I did get defensive was the whole coach situation this year, was because that's not Jason's heart. Like that's just not who he is as a person, is to go after someone on his team, whoever it is. He always takes the high road. So when he said that, I knew what he meant. And Russo, I talked to that week too, and Russo and I have a wonderful working relationship. And he said to me, you know, I didn't take it like that. And he even played the interview for me. And I'm like, that's how I felt like he would say it. Right. And he goes, I posted it and had no idea that it would become what it became. Mm-hmm. And that's the only thing. I mean, should I have jumped in? Whatever. It doesn't really matter. Right. But I just felt like you're saying all these things about him, and that's not his track record either. Like he's not been a player. He's been here for 8 seasons, 9, 8, I don't know, 7, 8 seasons, whatever. And he's not the guy that's going to attack anybody on his team. So I thought the people that jumped on that, I thought it was a little...
They saw an opportunity to strike, and they...
1,000%. I thought they were using that as an opportunity to like dig, and I just thought that was kind of cheap, like a cheap shot that they were taking. And they could have taken the high road on that and been like, you know, he obviously didn't mean it like that. We know Jason as a player. He's not like that. And they just didn't. And I thought that was kind of crappy of them to do.
Right. Well, it's natural to defend your significant other. It just gets blown up when it's 2 people who are known in the community, right? I mean, anyone would do that for their husband or wife or their kid or their parent. So it's, you know, I think people tend to forget about that and don't put themselves in their shoes and think, hey, if that was me, I wouldn't want someone saying that about my husband or my wife or whatever. And it's a tough situation to be in, but it's, you know, you handle it how you handle it, and you hope that people see it from your point of view, right? And that's really what you're trying to do at the end of the day, is get people to understand, hey, this is not who he is or what he meant. And
I tend to make a joke about things. Like even when I'm going to battle with someone online, I tend to try to make it funny instead of like a personal attack on someone.
Right.
But everybody, you know, people jump in.
Always. Imagine that.
You got to be prepared for
and
that.
you're absolutely right. Jason is not that type of player. Anybody that's ever interacted with him even once could tell you that about Jason. A great guy. Speaking of Jason, I do love your trolling of him. However, I think everybody would agree. Have you found like kind of a niche there almost? Like it's just something fun for you to do and just kind of almost a good way for you guys to interact? Because like you said, you're the same way at home.
Yeah, every opportunity, I would say. I mean, the plane ride that where I was,
where
he was riding first class right in front of me. I was like, that was gold. Like, I'm like, that could not have been written any better. No. I'll always take that opportunity. We make fun of I mean, he doesn't necessarily do it online all the time, but we laugh a lot at home. I think that's one of the great things about our relationship. We've always been people that don't take each other too seriously, or, you know, we take our jobs seriously, but not in a sense where it's like if I poke at him for for hockey, he's going to be upset with me. He's just a guy that doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. And he's a good sport about things. And again, he knows who he married, and we try to have fun. And I think, again, that's hopefully a key to a long-term relationship for us, is that we can laugh about things. So yeah, he doesn't know this yet, but
Insider scoop.
so Charlie Coyle, do you guys, Charlie?
Yeah.
You know Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie, yeah.
So Charlie and Jason are like best friends, and he's on Cameo. Have you ever heard of Cameo?
Yeah, where you can pay him to like send you. Oh, please tell me.
I just paid Charlie to send Jason a message to like tell him chin up with your injury, and like I heard you're a big fan of me, Jason.
Oh
and
my God.
Charlie texts me and he's like, oh my, he's like, can you swear on that? You can swear on a podcast. He's like, holy shit, Carly. He's like, did you literally just pay for me to send Jason a Cameo?
That
I'm
is
like, yes, I did.
amazing.
And so that's stuff that I do to him like every day.
That.
Yeah,
I bet Charlie loved it just as much.
oh my God, yeah. Because we don't see him much anymore. So
Yeah.
it's stuff like that where I miss him because he's great. Yeah.
Oh, funny. That's amazing.
Yeah, so he'll be getting a cameo from Charlie this
That
week.
is amazing.
I was like, that was the best money. Charlie's like, did you literally just spend money on that? I
Is
was
he
like,
sad that it's only $35? I feel like
it was
Charlie-
$100.
It was $100.
$100.
Amazing.
I know. I was like,
for Charlie.
if I don't like this message, Charlie, I want a refund on this. I was like, you better sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't wait for that.
That's
7 days, they
amazing.
said. 7 days it could take.
Yes. Amazing.
Yeah. Hurry up, Char.
Hurry up.
Well, you and Jason are really involved in the community. That's something you guys really pride yourselves in. And even when we asked you before we started recording, like, what do you want to be introduced as? The Give 16 campaign is one of the first things you mentioned, which just goes to show how much you care about that. Because you could have picked about 50 different things to label yourself as, and that was one of the first two things you said. Have you always been somebody who's tried to be charitable and involved in those kind of things, or as you got older, was it something, or did you and Jason kind of talk about this? How did all this come up where you wanted to be involved in the community like that?
Yeah, it's always been very important to me. There's that saying, I'm not going to say it right, but where it's like, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I've felt that about my whole life, whether it doesn't have to be monetary either. It doesn't have to be money. If you're given an opportunity where you can, you guys are great in your careers, if you can mentor somebody younger than you, or if you're given an opportunity to give back, I think that's really important. And so if you're given a lot, whether it's experience or money or resources, I think that you should try to find a way to make your community a better place. And so before I met Jason, I had been putting on something called the Minnesota Red Dress Collection, which was for Women's Heart Health, for Go Red for Women. And for me, it was such an interesting experience because that was before I met Jason. So I was knocking down doors and sending 100 emails to try to get anything donated for this. And I mean, sometimes I'd get a reply. More often than not, it was a no, or more often than not, I wouldn't hear back. And I really hit the ground running on that. And like, for me, that was one of the biggest prides in my life because I built this event that would happen, 500 people. We said sell out every year. We'd have women call us after and be like, I checked my numbers and I went to the doctor and had a scan, and whether they found good news or bad news, I thought it was really important that we were spreading the word that that heart health is the number one killer of women, which still is to this day. And a lot of people don't know that, especially young women. And so for me, that was something I did for 4 or 5 years before I even met Jason. And then when I met Jason, I was like, whoa, people will give me things because I know you. Like,
you're somebody, I think.
I mean, I would still fill out my applications for the Wild for donations and like send it to them for events that were separate than ours. And even when I met him, I would do that. And I just remember that they were always really supportive of everything I did, even before Jason, that they would send something to me for my event. But then when you meet them, it's like, do you want this? Do you want this? We'd love to be involved. And I'm like, I'm going to totally use that for my advantage.
Good.
So I guess like, long story, I've always really been involved in the community. And then obviously Jason's relationship with Tucker in the hospital was what jump-started our involvement there. And we felt like it's really important for us to try to continue his legacy there and say his name as many times as we can. And we've always asked his mom's permission. If there's ever a time where you feel like you don't want us to speak about him, or if you want to keep that quiet, like you tell us, like you're the driving force behind that, and we will respect whatever wishes you have. And she's always said, we just want people to talk about him.
Right.
We just want his name out there. Don't forget him. Know what a great kid he is.
Yeah.
And so for us, that's just an opportunity where, people listen. And so we want to be able to do that any chance that we get.
And did that kind of then lead to your idea for overtime and kind of, you've met all these athletes and all these people that are using their platform for good? I mean, talk about how that lended itself to this next latest endeavor of yours.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, Chad Abbott at KFAN came to me and said, we have this opportunity of time slot. If you want your own show, like we'd love for you to host something. What are your ideas? And I said, I'd love to interview people about their philanthropic work and why they do what they do. And we could do it with people in the sports world. It doesn't have to be pro athletes. It doesn't have to be a coach. It can be at any level. And so that's what led to Overtime. And we're kind of figuring out how to revamp it this year. I don't know what we're going to do in 2020, but I've been doing that for about 2 years now. And again, it's something I love because it's just like this. It's just conversations with people.
I'm sure you saw Kyle Rudolph and the whole situation and the good that's surrounding that. I mean, talk about your guys' relationship with Kyle and Masonic and all the good stuff you guys are doing there as well.
Yeah, I mean, when we started working at Masonic, Kyle Rudolph and his wife Jordan had already established. I mean, the end zone was in play to be built, and they had already done years and years of work there. And so they started meeting with us and encouraging us and talking to us about their process. And then when we wanted to build the Zucker Family Suite and Broadcast Studio, we were really fortunate because a lot of the things the end zone had to go through, our space didn't have to go through because they had learned through that. So we just grew a friendship with them. They do the golf tournament together. Our seasons align a little bit. So we're both here at the same time. Now they're really making this home. And so I don't know, we just, you just meet people that you spark a friendship with, and they have such great hearts and such big hearts. And they've taught us a lot through working at Masonic and through Give 16 and their foundation. So yeah, we just have a good friendship with them. And we all have young kids.
I was going to say, your guys' kids have to be all about
a little. Well, yeah,
because
because Sophia's almost 10, so she's a little bit older. But they have twins who are going to be 4, I want to say.
Oh boy.
And so a little bit older. And then they have Henry, who's about the same age as Hendrix.
Sure.
No, Stella.
Okay.
Younger. Yeah.
That's like an ongoing joke with us because they both have kids. We come in, you guys are talking about your kids, and I'm just the 24-year-old with no children.
Alexis.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah. Hello. Thanks for joining. Yeah, no, but that's everybody's life's in a different place all the time.
Yeah.
We were all young ones.
Wasn't that fun? Do you remember that?
No, I'm so glad I'm not that age anymore.
I'm established now.
I'm like
right?
so yeah. It's funny that like I was so happy at the age I met Jason, and like I'm so happy now that everyone's like, oh, it's so fun to be young, and I don't get me wrong,
Right.
like, it's great.
Hey, it's
and,
not
like,
that great all the time.
it's great in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, but like I'm so happy with where I'm at that like I don't look at it and go, gosh, I wish I was younger. Like I'm so thankful I am where I am.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you were younger, we touched on a little bit at the beginning of the interview here, but you said you didn't picture yourself or didn't really think about getting married or anything. It wasn't something that you're like, I need to do that. So I'm assuming that means that you had big career goals that you wanted. So where did you see yourself like at this age when you were, early 20s, late teens, like where were you thinking you were going to be when you were, a little bit older?
I wish I had an idea. I didn't know really. I thought I wanted to do something in sports, but I didn't really know what that would look like. And I've never taken a traditional path with anything. And so I've really been just taking advantage of opportunities that they've come. I just knew I wanted to do something career oriented. Like I was always wanting to be busy. I always wanted to be working. It was really important to me to network and just build this great group of people around me. And I didn't really know what that looked like though. And so that's why my career's kind of gone all over the place, but I'm really happy where I've landed. And again, I feel like I have the best of both worlds with my kids and with job. And this whole new element of social media and working on social media has been a huge opportunity for me. And I'm just taking advantage of that as well and enjoying the process. But yeah, I just remember always wanting to do job and not worrying about what else came. Sure. And I think that's part of what keeps you happy a little bit too, is like you want goals and you want to reach things. But if you have this idea of what it's going to look like, I think sometimes if it falls short, you can be frustrated. One of the things that I look back and advice for you, I don't know if you even think about that, but like you kind of feel like you'll be young forever. Right. You kind of feel like that age will never come. And I was like, gosh, when Sophia turns 5, I'm going to be so old. And now she's 9. She's going to be 10. And I remember putting up all these roadblocks for myself. Like if I didn't reach this by 25, I've failed. I can't pursue this anymore. If I don't reach this by 30, whoa, like I can't pursue that. And it's not going to happen. And I've had more success after 30 than I ever had success in my 20s. And it's different for everybody, like I knew Jenny Taftwell and she has had so much success at a very young age. So it just happens so differently for everybody. But for me, I was putting these roadblocks up for myself and saying, if I didn't do this, then I'm going to have to change career paths. I'm going to have to do something differently. And that's the one thing I wish I wouldn't have done for myself. And I just wish I would have been a little bit more okay with where it was headed.
Yeah.
And so that's something I look back on. And I'm like, God, that's what I would change. Is just this idea mentally that I needed to be successful, whatever that meant, by a certain age. And so
That makes
Well,
sense.
I think that's what's so fun about, I always tell people that's what's fun about this kind of career is that you talked about it too, Carly, but you're doing something different every day. You're not waking up at 6 a.m, driving to work, sitting at a desk until 4 o'clock and then driving home. You're in different places, talking to different people, with sports, you're talking to different teams and athletes, and you're constantly meeting new people and doing new things. And for me, that's what I think is the most fun, because you truly don't know what you might be doing in a week from now, let alone a year from now. And it keeps it fun, and it doesn't feel, like it doesn't feel so routine and so mundane. And it's just, even though you're doing the same kind of things, you're doing different stuff. And that's why I always am excited, because I'm like, oh, I get to do this tomorrow. And, like the day after that, I get to do this. And you're all over the place, and it keeps things exciting. Yeah.
Is it fun to think that you're really truly a great role model for Sophia? I mean, now that she's getting older and she can look at you and like, oh, mom did this. Right now she might not be able to.
Yeah,
What
she
does she
might
want
not
to
say that.
do?
She's a
Sophia, are you
dance.
listening?
Yeah, come on. I'll have to make her listen to that part of the podcast.
But truly, I mean, I think to have a mom that wants to do it all would be just amazing. Not to say that my mom didn't, but I didn't quite have somebody to look up to like that.
And I think it depends on what that means for you, Like I have so many girlfriends who what they want is to stay at home, and what they want is to be there for their kids all the time. And for them, that's success. For them, that is their dream. And so I guess whatever it ends up looking like for Sophia, she told me lately she wants to be a lawyer.
Nice. Oh, you go, girl.
I'm like, great. I was like, what about a plastic surgeon?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, you can be our lawyer. No. Yeah. So, I mean, I hope that I always say the one thing I want her to have confidence. I want her to know that she's loved, that she is great the way she is, that she has a kind heart, that she's good to people. And that, that to me would be being a great role model for her, is if she grows up with that sense of self-worth and confidence, because I think it's really hard for women. It's really hard for young girls to have that. And I want her to always know that she is in charge of herself and that she has self-worth. And that I hope she has. All my kids have.
Oh, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ended on a kind of funny note. Do you have any other good stories about Jason that you can share with us? I know we've heard the bunny story, which is amazing.
The bunny story.
I don't know if there's anything else or any other nitpicky things that you and something funny.
I mean, everybody knows it, but he's like the most particular and organized human being on the planet, which has helped me a bit, because I tend to be like the person that leaves piles of things. Like, we're not messy. I'm just like disorganized. So I would leave like all the kids' schoolwork on the table, and he would have a spot for all of it. And if you go see his closet, every shirt is just like to the inch apart. So he's just a really particular guy.
Do you move it to the side every once in a while? Just
do I mess with him?
I was gonna say, does he come home from like road trips and everything's like messed up?
The
and
kids
he's like,
do that. Like, if I'm in the bathroom, it's connected to the bathroom. So if I'm in the bathroom getting ready, like Hendrix will go in there and pull all of his shoes off. Drives Jason. That drives.
And you just
Jason's
laugh
nuts.
like,
yeah.
there it
Gosh,
is.
I'm trying to. The bunny story. The problem is I'm on the radio and I feel like I give all the stories away, because they say life is show prep. So.
Yeah.
When the bunny thing happens, the first thing I'm thinking is, wow, this is great for Twitter and great for KFAN when I go on. Unfortunately for Jason, because he's like, really? I was videotaping him in the closet while it's happening, and he's looking at me like, he never gets
knows
mad
what
at
you're
me.
doing.
But he's like, put the phone away. I'm like, sorry.
And now I heard he came on and defended himself and said that it wasn't actually his fault. What's the true story here?
Of course it's his fault. I was asleep and he left the mudroom door open and the bunny came in. Who else's fault is it? And like, we have these baby gates, and if he would have closed them, the bunny wouldn't have gotten upstairs, but he left them both open.
he's inching closer to the door. Does he know we're talking
He's so
about
jealous. Yeah, he's so jealous that I'm getting the limelight today. He's so
Again,
used to it.
Carly's husband.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course, yes.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah,
Cool.
but otherwise, I wish I had better stories. I don't know. Call Charlie. Charlie Coyle has all the good stories
Absolutely.
before me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Episode number 5. We'll put in a request.
Yeah.
Call Charlie.
See if we can get him on the
He's
phone.
great. He has
Or when
good stories
when
about.
we have you back again. Then
Yes,
you know.
yes. If you ever need a
Anniversary
guest
episode.
host, yeah. Yeah, Charlie's great. He he was our best man in the wedding, and he told a story about how he like hated Jason when he first met him, which was awesome.
Yeah,
So
because he was a pest, is what I'd heard.
yeah,
if I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
correctly.
He was like slashing him in the back of the leg, and he's like, "I hate this kid." And now they're best
and they were on like
friends.
Team USA World Juniors team together,
Yeah.
right? So that's when it all kind of started. I was
Yep.
actually interning at USA Hockey at that point in
Were you
time.
really?
I was,
Oh,
yes,
that's so
just
cool.
a young little buck about your age. It was a fun time.
Oh, way back when.
Way back when. Awesome. Well, again, Carly, thank you so
guys
much
are
for
awesome, yeah.
joining. We'll definitely have you back on.
I like the name of this too, Bardown Beauties.
Right?
Great job, guys.
Amazing that it hasn't been
love it.
taken. We scooped right in.
It's brilliant. Good job.
Love it. Thanks. All right,
Yes.
Carly, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And now it's time for our State of Hockey snapshot. We want to take a look at a pretty unique storyline here in the state of hockey. Sawyer and Simon Seidel, who are actually originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo, were adopted and now reside in Stillwater, Minnesota. And actually big hockey players. I'm sure you've seen something maybe on the Today Show about it. PK Subban, big fan. They were able to meet him. They actually were at practice with the Wild on Sunday, meeting Matt Dumba and Jordan Greenway. But it's cool, just another reminder that hockey is for everyone, and it's a unique storyline. They were kind of late to the game as well, having been adopted and brought over here and introduced to hockey once they got here. But a great reminder again that anybody can play the game, and it's a great game to play, right, Alexis?
Yeah, I love this story because there's two things that I thought of when I read about this story, which is one, Minnesota is such a welcoming community that a place like this is great for this to happen because we love our hockey here. I think we've talked about that on every single podcast, but that's why we even have a podcast to begin with is because we love hockey. So bringing those kids over when they were young and kind of raising them into this hockey community and Minnesotan community is just so cool because we're lucky enough to be born into this community, and then to bring other people in this community is so fun as well because I love being a part of it and I love introducing new people to the community as well. And the other thing that's so cool about it, which you touched on it, is the whole hockey is for everyone standpoint. I mean, we're lucky enough to be a part of a generation and a time period where it's not uncommon to see people of color in the game, but obviously we want to get to a point where it is not even something that's thought twice about, right? There shouldn't even be a question about who's playing, why they're playing, all that stuff. And so as we get older and as the game continues to grow, seeing more people of color part of that community is so amazing. And there's been so many talented hockey players who've been of color, who've played the game, who are going to be great role models for these guys and just hockey players in general. And it was fun to see the Wild embrace them and bring them to a practice. And they've got a lot of good role models in the NHL to look up to. And hopefully we'll be talking about them as NHL players someday, maybe. If they get to that point, that would be super exciting to see that storyline end like that. But if not, best of luck to them. And what a great sport to be involved in and a great community.
You can read more about those boys with my NHL.com story found at NHL.com. I'll tweet it out on my personal Twitter as well. That'll do it for this week. Again, we want to thank our presenting sponsors, SodaStick.com, for the merch as well, which launches today. So go get your gear, rep the Bardown Beauties. Thanks again to our guest, Carly Zucker, for taking the time to welcome us into her home. And thanks to Fred Vinefort for making us sound great every time.
Or just being Fred.
Yeah, and just being Fred. All right, join us next week and stay beauty.